But for me, the clearest vision of what success particularly in a luxury high-tech product, I had the opportunity to work with a designer called Frank Stephenson a few years ago. Absolute genius, but and some incredible products behind him. And we were having one of those kind of board debates about how do we know that we're doing well, and the usual things came out: market share, profitability, conquest, etc. And Frank was very quiet, and somebody said to him, "What do you think, Frank?" And he was like the designer, and he went, "Yeah, we should look at people's faces, and if they're smiling, then we're doing a good job." And we're like, "Sorry?" And he went, "Yeah." He said, "If we can capture people's imagination and we can make them smile, then we're probably doing a good job." And it was such a radical kind of deviation from the conversation. It was kind of the whole board kind of stopped. And he went, "Yeah." He said, "Good catchphrase would be, if the product we make, we should take your breath away, then we're doing a good job." And it was like, wow, okay. So I kind of reflected on that. And I've done it a few times now. And when I've shown people things, I always look at the people's faces. And you get that kind of, whoa, wow, and think exactly the same. When Marco was sitting with me at that lunch, and I said, "Look, I don't even know what the bike looks like." And he went, "It looks like this." And I went, "Ah." And it was like intake of breath. It was like, oh man, you've taken my breath away. You've captured my imagination. Yes, I want to be part of it. So in terms of defining success in that criteria, the TS Pro, when you look at it, it literally just stops you in your tracks. It takes your breath away. We've been out to the LA Auto Show. We've been to a couple of other shows. We've just been at CES early part of this year, and just droves of people, just being drawn to the product because of what it looks like. And it's clearly capturing people's imagination, the feedback that we've had, the conversations that have gone on around the product. And just before Christmas, we had a couple of investors in here, and we did the usual. We did the business case and the volumes and the profit and all that stuff. And the guy said, can I go and see the product? And walked out. And the first thing I was just watching his face. I opened the door and I had a bike right in front of him. And he walked out and he stopped. And I was like, "Yep, got you. Got you. Absolutely got you." And nailed it. And he's like that. And he was on the phone. It's like talking to a friend. "Oh, you got to buy this bike. This bike's amazing." Oh, and totally captured his imagination. That for me is the definition of when you've got it right. Now you've got to have to support that. It's got to be a reliable product. It has to deliver on its promises. It needs to be at the boundary. It needs to be infinitely kind of adjustable going forward. So, and the things that the R&D team at Verge are doing in terms of the elements that are coming to the bike and have come to the bike so far, we're just going to keep pushing that boundary. Some of the technology that sits in the background that people are just not aware of, it's just mind-boggling in terms of what this bike can do and what it's going to be able to do as well. So you kind of blend all of that together, but fundamentally it's about that first initial reaction. It's when people look at that bike and they fall in love with it, and you can just see that initial engagement of, wow, catch your breath, smile. It's like, yep, got you. In terms of the changes, the rapidity of change, not just in automotive vehicles, but in technology, and the kind of blurring of boundaries between, kind of motor systems and transportation systems and the technology that supports it and the information and the use of the whole digital revolution that we've gone through. The pace just seems to be going faster and faster, but the boundaries are disappearing almost by the day. And there are things that you used to find on your phone and now in your car, and they kind of blend and they move, and the adaptability. I think the other big defining factor for myself is the expectation of the customers. Is they want something special, they want something unique. But they've never lost the sense of customer satisfaction. Is, I'm your customer. I bought your product. You need to service me. I want to enjoy the product. I want to become an ambassador for your product. But you need to talk to me. And the communication, the digital thing is a double-edged sword. So the communication is rapid now. So if you do good, you hear it. If you do bad, you hear it. And you have to be able to respond. So being agile is a key thing now. You can't just make a product and then just sit on it for 3 years and don't adapt it because you'll just be dead, because the whole game will move so quickly around it. So adaptability, personalization is another factor that's just come in. People they want the base of a product, like the bike, don't want to adapt it. They want to, can you do it in a different color? Can you do, different features? And the nice thing about where we are at Verge is the first product is often going now, so TS Pro, but we've got others in the pipeline. So, we're not going to talk about those. Okay. Scalability is an interesting thing. Potentially the one of the answers to my previous questions around the product is, responding to the customer demand and uniqueness. But the core principle behind it is stability and standardization. So at a core level, to be able to do the same operation, the same process, and to confirm it and to make sure that no faults flow forward in it, and when you find an issue, you deal with the issue, and you don't let anything leak out. All of those basic principles, they stand, and they help you build the foundation of the house. Yeah. So if you've got standard processes with standard checks, with a really strong supply base, it gives you a great foundation to build a fantastic product. The factory just outside Tallinn is really split into two halves. We've got Hall A and we've got Hall B. Hall A is the sub-assembly and assembly of the main bike, and Hall B is where we make the motor and our battery pack. And we've chosen to do that because the kind of end-to-end delivery of the complete package, we're in total control of that. And it means that we can evolve very rapidly. And we have got that as a core philosophy. It's kind of openness to just accepting a challenge, not worrying about too far in the future, just dealing with today's problem. So what are we going to do today? What do we think we might run into tomorrow? What do we know? And then we just progressively move forward. And it's actually quite kind of Eastern in that philosophical approach is, yes, you have to have a vision. We've got a very clear vision of where we want to be in the future and the product lineup. But let's just deal with today's problem and then tomorrow's problem and they will incrementally move forward. So we have battery and motor in one hall, and then we move that into our sub-assembly areas, and we control everything right the way from the wiring harnesses right the way through to the sub-assembly of the components that go onto the bike. And then we have the main assembly line. And that kind of one-piece flow, it's a very natural flow through, and the visual control behind the factory is key. So I've always philosophically believed that you should be able to walk into a facility and within 5 minutes understand how it's doing. Have you got a problem or have you not got a problem? So we've got some very simple visual controls where we can see the parts for the next bike are already queued up. So you just look down a line of racks and tables, and if there's a part on there, then the next bike's good to go. So the system is very standardized. It's got all the same elements, but we have a core philosophy of we will try and test ourselves, but we'll hang on to this whole one-piece flow control. It's a very calm environment. When you walk through it, it's just peaceful and it's clean and tidy and ordered. And that sets a subconscious mindset in people's minds that this is the way that it is. And when you've got a core of people who know how to do that, when you bring new people in, as an unwritten ground rule, you don't need to sit with a new person and say, here's all the rules you must do. It just becomes natural because the system corrects itself. If somebody does something that's out of standard, somebody in the system will say, we don't do that this way. And it self-corrects, and it's non-oppressive, and it's open, and it's free, and all of those elements, when you blend them together, just lead to a really functional factory that is just a good place to work. Somebody asked me, what do I like most about the jobs that I've had? And actually it's building high-performing teams. When you review across the world, if you review people who are classed as good leaders, what they tend to do is they build good leaders and they build good teams. So you guys are interviewing me today, but you could interview a good half a dozen other people on the floor. You get very similar answers. I don't believe in in kind of hogging the limelight. I like to give people challenges and opportunities, and kind of you set boundaries, but then you've got to let people try and test and develop themselves. I've arrived at where I am in my career and my life by making mistakes. You learn by trying something and going, that didn't work. Don't beat yourself up. Just try something different, but learn quickly and try again, and never lose heart, because actually each problem that you run into and that door that you walk through, that's a learning experience. So it's either a good learning experience or a bad learning experience, but just take it as a learning experience. That worked, do it again. That didn't work, don't do that again. Do something different and experiment and try. So in terms of building a team, if you can adapt that philosophy into the people that you select, and they can't all be the same type of people. You want a real blend. You want some quiet people, you want some loud people, you want some thinkers, you want some people who, I class them as half-thoughters. They're quiet, and you say to them, what are you thinking? And it's like, oh, you probably think this is a really wild idea. It's like, let me have it. And, well, I've only half-thought it through. No, let it come. And that idea comes out, and it's a game changer. It's like a light bulb goes on in the room, and you go like, wow, that's like radical thought. And it's like, not a bad idea. And then that really helps build and encourage people to have an opinion, to make a comment. You're obligated, if you work in any organization that I've been with, you're obligated to challenge me. That's how I learn, that's how I improve. I don't have all the answers. So the people I try and select and I work with and develop I give them the freedom, I give them some guidance, I drop them some ideas, and listen, I adapt, and I let them grow. And then when they see the successes coming, celebrate those successes with them. And it can just be as simple as a thank you. It can be as simple as a well done. It can be a little gift. It can be a little celebration. It can be a cake. It can be just sit down and talk about what you did at the weekend. But that kind of social interaction engagement just helps build the rapport within the team. And they become a self-supporting team, and my experience of the teams that I've built so far, they just go from strength to strength when you give them that encouragement, freedom and support.